Thank you all for joining us for this month's Focus on Fridays. I am so excited for this month because we're going to be talking about a brand new film, Disability Out of Focus. And joining me today, we've got Alan Wasserman, the director, and Scott Gutenberg, who's the photographer within the film. So, over to you guys if you want to give us a quick introduction.
Well, I'll start. I got very fortunate because my cinematographer, Peggy MacArthur, was on next door and ran into Scott Gutentag. They didn't know each other, and she was really admiring his work. And she, as they got to communicate, she presented the proposal of any interest on his part in turning his work into a documentary, short documentary. And Scott gave it had a positive response. So then we assembled a incredible crew. He had Peggy MacArthur, cinematographer. Her husband, Merrick MacArthur, is my assistant and partner director. We had Mike Brueggemeyer do the editing, who is an Emmy Award-winning editor, and Cliff Keller do the music. And we had Scott's girlfriend, Yen, who is a one-woman crew and could lift anything, and move fast. She was terrific. And we had Aston Penman doing still set photography. So it was a great experience, and I think the final analysis is getting it down to 8.5 minutes was really a tremendous achievement, because in the world of documentaries, you don't want to repeat yourself. You don't want to bore people. You don't want to keep drilling the same point over and over. You want to get in, tell your story, and get out. At least that's my opinion. In the form of short documentaries. You have a long documentary, of course, that's a different genre. But
Totally.
I had never directed a documentary before. I've directed small films. I've been an actor for about 55 years on stage and screen and television screens. So this was my about third or fourth directing attempt, but my first with documentaries, and I fell in love with it. It was just great. Every department did their job. That's all I had to do. So I'm going to shut up now and give the floor to Scott.
Scott. And Scott, if you just want to maybe introduce the film and tell us what it's about, and then we can play it for everybody, and then we'll jump back in with further deep dive conversations.
Okay, no, absolutely. So yeah, as a licensed educational psychologist and photographer, I decided to blend the two careers together to really tell the authentic stories, inform, and educate about people with disabilities. And so the film showcases kind of behind the scenes my process of really connecting with the family, the individuals, and showcasing, their stories and going beyond just a disability, but as a human being, that these are people. And once people become informed and educated, it goes beyond perceptions and biased beliefs. And so that was really the purpose of the film.
Oh, well, great. Well, without further ado, let's all enjoy the film. We'll be back with a wonderful conversation about behind the scenes.
This is David Isaacman. He has autism. He was a cast member on Love on the Spectrum. He has a love for animals, and here he's showing me his collection before the photo shoot.
I only take them out when it's time for them to be on film.
This is Everett Bennett. He has multiple challenges, including communication, sensory, and the need to move, which is why his dad is walking him into the shot.
Be patient.
Be patient.
Yeah.
Definitely. Taught me how to be patient.
Pam has Down syndrome. I use pictures in her book to capture her interests.
So don't pretend that he's not there. Talk to him. People tend to talk about him, around him. He's always listening. So talk to Max.
Max has multiple challenges, including a visual impairment. He loves hitting a balloon. My name is Scott Gutentag. I'm a photographer, and I specialize in photographing individuals with a range of disabilities and telling and creating their stories and legacies through the power of photography. So I'm an educational psychologist, and for many years I've worked with individuals with a range of disabilities, including autism, intellectual disabilities, genetic syndromes, and physical challenges. And I've been photographing my entire life, ever since I was 10 years old. So over time, I decided to meld the two professions together.
How are you? Good to see you.
So my goal is to always meet them ahead of time before the shoot, and to get to know them, their personality, their interests, their preferences, their strengths, maybe some of their challenges, so then I can really individualize the portrait session to their needs.
He was hit twice with challenges, being born almost 4 months premature and having to conquer that part of life for the first 4 months. And then as he was growing and becoming more mobile, that's when we noticed something else is going on. And that's when he was having all those seizures.
He's non-speaking, but he's very vocal.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't communicate in typical ways, he understands everything that's going on around him.
When I photograph a family and with their loved ones who have different types of disabilities, my approach isn't to isolate one or the other. It's really to relate to everybody, the parents, the siblings, and just including all of them. So David, do you like pictures when you're smiling or when you're serious?
Both. I like the smiling one.
Okay. I may work with that individual, and I'll tell the family members, no matter what I do, keep looking at me and keep that smile. So I have to keep track of them to keep them going while working with the individual to get that engagement. I try to really be in touch with where they are at the time, while at the same time creating a really fantastic image for them.
She's singing.
Oh, she's singing? Mary has an intellectual disability. She enjoys singing, so our director, Alan Wasserman, jumped in.
The hills are alive with the sound of music. I don't know the words, Mary.
So that's my goal, is for them to have a very comfortable time, a fun time, relaxed time. So when they look at the images again, it cues that part of their brain that makes them feel happy, feels content, and reflective. I feel
Check that out.
wonderful when I see an incredible creative shot that's very respectful, especially during sessions that may be very challenging, and even those sessions that are not challenging, just to capture that emotion on camera and the humanity in that image. They can include the image in their home next to the other neurotypical family members without standing so far apart, like, oh, this is this family member and this is this family member. So it's really, I think they really feel the spirit of inclusion. The caregivers or the family members speak for them and are just very happy that they got a very respectful photo that they can enjoy for years. It's really getting a respectful shot of the individual, but importantly, a creative portrait shot of the individual. So just not getting a snapshot, but a portrait professional shot that is beautiful, is creative, and it tells a story of that individual. So whenever I get that, I'm very happy. What they truly see is not a person with a disability, but a human being. And I think that's the power of photography, and one of the greatest gifts I can give through portrait photography is educating and showing and informing. And so when people see an image, it really speaks volumes. People tend to see people with disabilities differently when they look at my images. Based on some of the comments I receive, it's so beautiful, and that's so wonderful, and it reinforces, coming from these individuals who comment, that look, we're all the same.
So when I look at the shots, that really communicates what I'm trying to achieve, and that is the authenticity of the individual, the family, the portraiture, the quality. When all those pieces come together, I have a sense of aha and a relief and feel good. But not only that it happened, but also for the family and for the individual.
What an incredible film. I myself, when I first saw this film, when it was submitted to Focus on Fest, it really touched me with the visceral connection and the humanity that really comes through the lens in the photos. And it's just so cool to be able to see behind the scenes and see how you can interact with your subjects and really pull out that beauty and just the light behind people's eyes. So maybe if we can start, and maybe you can tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind the project, and plus the desire to make a film about it.
Well, Scott Guttentag is the inspiration behind the project, and him meeting with Peggy MacArthur on Nextdoor forged this relationship and just really charged us up to tell Scott's story. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, and so to echo that, I had people in the community saying, "Oh, you should put your photography and your images into a documentary." I had no clue, I had no idea, I had no connections. I'm just a guy with a camera and a psych degree. So that's when, as Alan said, Peggy contacted me, and I told her and said, "Oh, I know people. We do this. Let me get some information." And Alan was on board immediately, and I was just like thrown, and I felt so fortunate, and with so much gratitude to be led through this process to really tell the story. And as we went through the process, in addition to Mike Brueggemeyer, I'd like to do a shout out to Sarah Nyman, who edited as well, and just a really fantastic crew to lead me through this. And yeah, it was really fantastic how it all came together, and to really inform, educate, and the families who saw it just really loved it, and just love the beauty of it and information about it.
Fantastic. Well, it really does show in the piece. Sorry, go ahead, Alan.
I just want to add that we're winning film festival awards left and right. The film is playing actually all over the world. Right now it's in Mumbai, India. It's really it's blown our mind. We had no idea we would have such a great response. It's played in Los Angeles. We are holding our breath for a big film festival acceptance in New York City in the spring. We'll see if that happens or not. But we have far surpassed our expectations of laurels. So I just wanted to, and that's because Scott's work and the subject is just so enticing and so specific and different than any other thing around disabilities. And the other interesting thing I want to point out is that working with these disabled people, you go in there, you have these, I had preconceived notions about how they are, who they were, and how they behave. They were absolutely wonderful, and they couldn't wait to get themselves on film. They couldn't wait to get into the right makeup, the right wardrobe. I mean, they were just artists and people who love to express themselves like anybody else. So their disability is really actually very minimal, far more than my uneducated, inexperienced mind took me. So it was a great education for me, and I'm very grateful to Scott for that. This is a world I would not know so broadly about had I not done this project with Scott and everybody else.
Yeah, fantastic. And because the whole thing with Mental Healthy is talking about creativity and the beauty of creativity of really being able to work together with people to tell their stories. Because that's the wonder of any type of creativity, whether it's film, storytelling, music, painting. We can get that visceral communication and that visceral experience to really walk in other people's shoes, so we can really see what that's all about. So maybe Scott, if you can maybe tell me about a little time, and maybe the first piece of creativity that really clicked with you when you realized the potential that could help not only your own mental health, but others.
Mm. You mean through the film or photography?
And just in life, like really, maybe how this presented you, and maybe the first photograph that you took that you realized, hey, I can really connect with people and expand their horizons through my art.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I think it's the creativity is just kind of being with the people and learning from them, and really not having so much a script going in, but following their lead and what makes sense, for them, and really creating something sometimes out of nothing. There are a lot of individuals who I photograph who can't leave their kitchen or their bedroom or their house, and it's really creating something beautiful and wonderful for them in an environment that we wouldn't consider epic. And when I get that, that makes me, as a creative, just really not only relieved, but really it's a rush, and it's a really good feeling, and especially when sharing with the families and individuals so they can enjoy it. That goes well beyond a snapshot. Either they cry or out of wonderment and just the acceptance and the feeling of being so patient. And that's all through the creativity of just being with them and being with where they are right here, right now.
Oh, great. And then following up on that, during the actual production of the film, but then also maybe a time where you've done this project without the film cameras, making the film where you're just doing the actual project. But is there a story or an anecdote around a photography subject that influenced and shaped the final photos away from your original concept, where it really became a true collaboration between yourself, the subject, and the camera?
I think there have been several situations in which I photographed individuals with pretty severe disabilities, and they were in their upper years, the late 80s, early 90s, and I wanted to create a wonderful creative shot. And some of them passed away, and they were in their families. They were so appreciative to have a photo to showcase, to remember them, and I think it really shaped me in terms of the importance of what photography can offer. It's just not an image, it's just not a snapshot, but it's an emotional experience. It's a legacy, and it's something not only that individual, but families, loved ones, caregivers can take with them to years to come. Very interestingly, I think a lot of times in people with dementia, like my dad, sometimes an image can take the place of the memory. And so they forget things, but once they see the image, like my dad, image of our family 35 years ago, he can relay the story that happened simply by looking at that image, but he couldn't talk about it just on its own. So I think that's really the power of the photography, the creativity, and what shapes me, that I get so excited and so passionate to be able to provide this through this medium, which is really so powerful.
It seems like photography really fires up people's neurons,
Yes.
It really just jump starts them, triggers them in a positive way, and then it's a stimulant that all sorts of creativity from the visual connection or the visual memory create this whole wonderful environment.
Yeah, and it's the old adage, picture speaks 1,000 words. It's just
absolutely.
Yeah, and for me, it's all in the eyes. If it's the window of the soul, and it's just that beauty and wonder, and again, from what building up on what you said earlier, Alan, about how it actually opened your eyes to kind of change your perceptions and experience of this community. So maybe you could expand on that, if there was a specific anecdote of where it sort of the light bulb went off in your mind, specifically through an interaction or a collaboration.
Well, there's two items along those lines. First of all, I'm the son of a schizophrenic, and my mother was in and out of psychiatric wards in my childhood. However, she maintained an incredible ability to be a classical pianist, an artist. She had probably had an IQ that was never measured, that was off the charts. If I was studying a language at school, she'd take the books at night into a room. In the morning, she was speaking the language. The brain was incredible. But the disability, and I'm not even sure that's the correct term for her situation, was that throughout that impingement of what we'll call a disability, for lack of a better term, she was able to flourish and able to express herself and able to be artistic. And then one of our subjects is Max, who's nonverbal, who's the son of a good friend of mine, Steve Rosick, and his wife Victoria. And when we were making the film, I had visited Max with my wife, and it just like the alarm went off my head. I said, "Oh, this kid's got to be in the film." So we were pretty much close to wrapping the film, and I said to Scott and to Scott and to Peggy and to Merrick, I got one more person. I really think we should go, and it proved to be quite a wonderful situation to see this boy flourish with his limitations. And also, one other thing that I want to say, every subject we worked with was able to express such love, such emotion, singing, hugging us, being just loving people, and they're living their life without a filter in the most positive way, the most healthy way. So in some ways, they're healthier than a lot of us. That was a real big wake-up call for me, from my past and from my present.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that we can really bring into our own lives, because I've had many of these experiences as well, where I've, maybe had a perception of, hey, this isn't going to go the way that I think it's going to go, and then it just completely goes in a different way that makes everything so much better. And really, the way I look at disabilities and different abilities is they're superpowers. Mental health and any difficulties that we have in our lives are superpowers. We just got to learn the origin story to see where we can go.
I want to say one very quick story. If this guy was still alive, I'd make a documentary about him. I know a gangster. I went to school in Boston. I knew this gangster who hid behind this big real estate empire, but he was a heavy gangster and a pimp and a terrible human being on certain levels. And then when he went to court, the judge decided to give him community service and gave him that he would have to go work with kids with Down syndrome. And the judge thought that he was kind of punishing this gangster by sending him to do that. The guy fell in love with these kids, and after his community service was over, the rest of his life, he dedicated to shifting away from his gangster ways and to giving himself to these kids. And till the day he died, he was happier than ever. So I just wish to God he was. I can't imagine he's alive, because I'm 72 now, and I was in my 20s when I knew him, and I didn't know him well. But that was another great eye opener. The love that he got from those Down syndrome kids changed his life, reformatted his life. So that's the gift that people with supposed disabilities give to us.
Incredible. And again, that's what we need to keep doing, is to break down the stigma. The stigma of mental health and the stigma of disabilities, where people don't want to interact and don't want to give other people the time of day. And we really have to find out that we're all just pieces of the puzzle of the big picture. And if we can all fit into those spots, we're gonna make a beautiful picture. So and that's the wonderful thing about your film, is you mentioned all the awards, all the laurels that it's getting, which is fantastic. But the real reward from this is the people that you will never meet or never know, that will click on the link and see this film, and it'll change their lives, and they'll move forward, and it'd be like the big ripple. And that's why we do what we do. But again, we can't do what we do without people like you that are
Brian, I might have to steal that. It's a great title, The Big Ripple. I like that a lot. If I have to sign a waiver, I'll do it. That's a great title.
Well, I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure it's public domain by now. I'm sure Shakespeare probably used it.
Okay. I'll go back.
Cool. And that's us wrapping up now for Focus on Fridays. But just quickly, if you want to give us a quick plug of maybe what you're moving forward to next,
Scott.
So I think it's really expanding, and whether it's on disabilities, but a lot of people with human needs, and into a greater series and just greater forms of information and documentation of people with disabilities, another subset disabilities, or another angle of humanity that people don't see, or that kind of go unrepresented or misperceived.
Wonderful. And Alan?
I'm working on getting the rights from a podcaster of something called Swamped. Swamped is a podcast that was done recently with 3 people. One of them was the Ed Shevelin, who's the head of the sanitation department in New York City. Then the 2 other women. And what the story is about is the cleanup in New York City after Hurricane Sandy. And these people were, one guy was a witness to that. Another woman just witnessed to having terrible anxiety on Tappan Zee Bridge. She stopped her car in traffic and then got rescued by what's known as the bridge guys. These guys that just appear in orange vests and save people on the Tappan Zee Bridge. And then another one about a woman just growing up in a very bizarre childhood, which she thought was normal until she got out into the world, and then that she liked her bizarre childhood better than the world. So that's one thing. And I'm on a TV series right now called Nobody Wants This, and it's doing very well. And I'm coming out in a film called Miriam, which is about a Hasidic Jewish girl who strays from the family because she falls in love with skateboarding. And it's going to be a great little film. So that's usually I don't know what the heck I'm doing next, but today I got lucky.
Oh, totally. But just when you mentioned skateboarding is another incredible outlet for young people to get in, and we've got there's another incredible film about skateboarding and how it helps people's mental health that we have as well. That'll be coming up in the following season. So, but again, thanks so much for coming along, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.